Joining me today, I have Rebecca Page. Rebecca Page has an amazing background. She's a businesswoman. She works a lot in money flow and money energy, and she's going to talk to us today about how she got into that and what it all means to her. So, thank you, Rebecca. Welcome.
Thank you so much for having me, Philippa. I'm really excited to be here.
I'm excited to have you too. Where did you start your journey? How did you get to this point? That's a really big question.
Well, I was about 8. No, but seriously, as a kid, I started my first business.
Brilliant.
I have had a business since I was a child, and it was about the end of my teens where I've always had something. Like I might sell a business, but then I'll start another one or buy something. And I've had a business like my whole adult life. And there's something about the coming up with something that you're passionate about and then creating this whole system which serves people in some way. It might help them make more money. It might help them have an easier life. It might help them be healthier, like whatever the hell the thing is. Oh, excuse my language. Whatever the thing is, right? Even though you're selling stuff, you're helping people because people don't buy stuff unless it helps them in some way. Even if you need new windows, you're buying them because you need new windows, right? Like there's always a service in there somewhere. And like that whole coming up with something and providing it in a way that serves the customers best, and then working out what other ways you can serve them and how you can make the most money out of it to then serve everybody behind the business as well. Like it's just, it's really exciting. And then the more I got into business, the more I realized there was a whole holistic energy side of it as well, because everything is energy. You just learn a little bit about quantum mechanics and physics and all of that stuff and like blow your head. Well, it does for me. But everything is energy. So there's a whole how you approach a business and how you make your money, whether it's in a job or in a business, there is a whole energetic side to that as well. And the bigger and bigger businesses I've had, the more I've learned about that, because I've realized how intrinsically linked how you do something. So, growing a following on Instagram to promote your new business, how you do that and the energy you bring to it, those two things together are what decide the success. It's not that you can just be in a really good vibe and suddenly thousands of people will follow you. You have to be posting posts and you have to know how the algorithm works to know what it wants you to do. But if you're in a real grump and you're putting it out there and you're resenting every post you do, that's not going to work either. So it was a very complex long answer with a lot of trailing ends.
I love it because essentially what you're talking about is metaphysics is I say it's a new area. It's not really. Everything we're learning now has been done for years before, just got different names. But if you go back to the basic one, like the third rule of thermodynamics, everything is energy. And that is in mainstream science. So what you're talking about is actually mainstream science. It's just presented in perhaps a more digestible way, which I think is really important because we don't all have physics degrees. And at what point was there an aha moment for you when you went, oh right, I get that actually what I put out there is what I get back, or was it a slow transition?
I think for me it's probably been quite a slow transition over decades. So I remember being in literally a physics class as a teenager, and we had to sit and read. I don't know, it was raining outside or whatever. We had to sit and read, and so we all got out our reading books. And I had brought a How Your Brain Works book, and I was sitting eating nuts, which were the brain food, which now, obviously not appropriate in a school, but it was a different time back then, and that was wholly appropriate and okay at the time. Wouldn't do that now. But I was sitting eating nuts because that was what the book had told me, that you need to eat nuts to grow your brain. And so I've been interested on how your body works and how your brain works for a long time. And a lot of the stuff that I've been learning recently is stuff I would have called woo-woo and weird years ago. And the difference, it's all science, but the difference is now there's names for it, like you said, exactly what you just said. And they now know how to do science experiments to prove it. And there's, some very expensive labs and equipment and stuff they've had to develop in order to prove many of the theories. But it's just science. But the thing about it is you don't need to understand the science to apply it. Like you don't, yeah.
I think that's. You think about, we don't think about gravity, we just apply it every day. Like it's just there doing its thing. Don't know how it works, but I'm not falling or floating.
It's working just, whether you apply it or not. And you can either try and work against it or with it or ignore it.
And when you started going down this path then, now you said your first business was when you were 8. Yeah. How were you encouraged? Because what I do notice a lot is I didn't come from an entrepreneurial background, but I came from a very supportive background. So my parents, if I said, I don't know, I was going to become a hippie and smoke weed all day, they'd be like, okay, if that's what you want to do, just make sure you think about it. But that's cool. They're really supportive. How did you find your way into business at that young age? Was it your parents? Was it the environment you were in?
I have very supportive parents who have supported all of my crazy ideas and things I've done. And as I've gotten older, they've gotten more entrepreneurial, actually. And my dad was in corporate for a long time and very successful in general manager type roles. And then he became a business coach. And that was around the time when I'd already been running my own businesses for a while. But then he was applying all of the stuff that, as an 18-year-old, 20-year-old, whatever it was, I thought I knew everything, as you do at that age.
They were simpler times at that age, weren't they? I know everything. Yeah, the world's simple.
I really did know everything. So he was applying all this corporate, understanding of teams and large businesses and all of that to his coaching and getting these extraordinary results with people. And so I have learned a lot from my parents and how they've approached all of that. But it's just, I don't know, it's always just been something in me that I've wanted a business. And, I was 8 when I started sewing and I was making things. I made all kinds of complicated, weird stuff, but I also made things to sell. But even actually, if I look before that, there was we moved house once. I'm sure my mum will be okay with me telling this. We moved house once. And my mum was busy unpacking the house. And she was, as you do, if you've ever moved house with 3 children, trying to just keep all of us at bay and just, go play. And this is New Zealand and a very safe, secure area. And so we just went outside and played because that's what we did, right? And I decided I was going to put on a ballet show. Now, I did do ballet for many years after that, but I was not a ballerina at the time. and our house was not prepared for me to do a ballet show. And I didn't tell anyone about this. I just decided I was going to do a ballet show. I did a little bit of practice and then off I went. I marched down our driveway and along the road and up to the next house. And I walked up, knocked on the door and said, "Hi, I'm Rebecca. We've just moved in next door. I'm doing a ballet show. Would you like to come? It's at 3:00. It's 50 cents. And just put my hand out and just waited. You've got this, God knows for how old I was. 5, 6, 7, 8. I don't even know. I was younger than 8, but I was old enough that, my mum and dad would have just let me be outside playing in the garden. They were not expecting me to march it down the street to someone else's house. Anyway, and I marched up and down that street. And so the story goes, it was like 20, 30 people, but I cannot have been that many. A number of neighbours then turned up at 3:00. And I still hadn't told my mum anything, right? So my mum was in the middle of unpacking, opens the door like, "Hi," up the street standing there. And true to form, amazing supportive parents, she got out all of the deck chairs, the little folding chairs. And I did this little 5-minute show and my mum apologised profusely and made them all a cold drink and then off they went. I don't know why I'm telling that story. It's funny.
It's amazing. But also, do you know what I love? It's a really good lesson though in the confidence of children and how we learn it as we get old, how we lose it as we get older. Like
Yeah.
having, again, it's that clarity of thought going, well, I'm going to do this way. And we don't think about all the negative. We don't think about the, what if I can't? I don't know how to do ballet. All those tiny details. We just go, I've decided I'm going to do this. And
I'd
I
read a
love that
book.
in
I'm
children.
sure
Yeah,
I
I
knew
read a
how to
book.
do it.
Absolutely. And children are so good at doing that. They don't have fear. They don't have those confidence issues. They just do it. So
Yeah.
then when you get
And I was
older and you
convinced they wanted to come. And then I
well,
just
they
held out
came.
my hand until they gave me 50 cents and said they'd be there.
I love that. But also, as I said, hats off to your mum for just going with the flow and letting it happen.
Yeah. I mean, if she was to tell me that I'd been grounded afterwards, I wouldn't be surprised. Like, I don't really know how the rest of the story goes. I just remember the bit I remember.
Brilliant. So I guess when you were a child, you kind of, in some ways, you subconsciously understood the flow of things without knowing that you understood it, because you had that focus, you had that positive intention, and you just did it.
Yeah. Well, kids do. I think humans naturally understand it. And as adults, we're trying to, I mean, I'm a parent, right? And as a parent, I'm trying to manage their expectations. I don't want them to be crushed if things don't go their way. I want them to be happy, and I want to try and, use my experience to help them and all of that. But if you take all of that away and you take all of that interfering that really we do in the name of good parenting, like, we're trying to be good parents. I don't know anyone who's not trying to be a good parent. Like, most people are. But if you take all of that away and you just observe them playing on their own, they have such confidence and such an expectation stuff's going to go their way until things don't. And then that's when they learn. But then that's also where we interject. And I do kind of wonder, like, if this is like a deep philosophical parenting question, and I'm not a parenting expert. I just have 3 children. I'm trying not to screw up. Like, I'm trying to raise them as good humans. But if you take away all of that interfering of trying to manage their expectations and help them with this and all of that, like, would they carry that confidence of just knowing that, of course, people are going to pay me 50 cents because, well, I'm a ballerina and I'm a cute kid and they're going to want to come see me.
Absolutely. I remember, so I lost some of that confidence, my late 20s, early 30s. I got into corporate, but I remember I moved to Russia. I was studying Russian as a degree.
Wow.
And I'd spent sort of 4 or 5 months in a place called Krasnoyarsk in Siberia. Then I went to St. Petersburg. I went to Spain for the summer, came back to St. Petersburg. And here's the interesting part. I had nowhere to live when I came back to St. Petersburg. But it didn't occur to me for a moment that I wouldn't find a flat to rent on the day that I arrived. And I found a flat to rent on the day that I arrived.
Yeah.
And you just think, like, I mean, obviously, again, different times, the internet wasn't around. It was, it was more of a who you know and have this conversation kind of set up. But it didn't occur to me for 1 minute that I wouldn't rock up on that day in St. Petersburg and find somewhere new to live.
Yeah.
And it worked. And now I look back at some of the things I did as I got older, and again, that interjection comes in. Something fails, and you suddenly, that fear creeps in, or that uncertainty, the confidence goes.
Yeah.
And what I've been trying to do within a part of this process is reclaim that confidence of going, how can it not work? And it's kind of naive optimism, isn't it? But you see, children do it all the time. So why can't we as adults?
Well, it is. My head says yes, it is naive optimism. But what I know of science says otherwise. So and there'll be people out there listening to this who can explain this 5 million times better than me, and I apologize in advance. But from my rudimentary science, I mean, I do have learned quite a lot. I just don't know how good I do at explaining. Let's see. So your body, this can next to me, my phone, the microphone, the computer, the table, everything is made up of vibrating stuff. And you can, if you want to get into the science of it, you've got atoms, molecules, blah, 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 all subatomic particles, and they keep finding smaller and smaller things. You know, start off with this thing and it gets smaller and smaller and smaller. And what they eventually come to is actually most of everything that you see around you is made up of space. It's just energy. It's just space and vibrating stuff.
Mm.
So if you look at the vibrating stuff, which is what our bodies are made out of, we're not solid. Our bodies are vibrating constantly, everything that makes up our bodies and the wall and the floor and everything else. And that vibration gives off, and in it gives off a wave. You know, if you think of your science that you would have learnt in school, and there's those, what are they called? Sine and A sine and
yeah,
whatever they're
S-curve.
called. You've got those S-curve style waves that are energy coming out from you all the time. Even when you die, the energy, the frequency your body gives off just changes because it's now a dead cell, not a living cell. And it's in the process of dying as you're dying, right? So, and when you're thinking happy thoughts, you're giving off one type of frequency. When you're thinking negative thoughts, you're giving off another. When you've got a sore knee, you're giving off another. Like every part of you is vibrating differently all the time. So the frequency around your body is constantly changing and shifting.
Mm.
But also, energy never goes away. It can only change form or move through form into some other form. So every thought and feeling you've ever had is essentially out in the space around an experience you've ever had. The energy signature of that is always around you. Now, you can actively, through therapy, is a great way of doing it, but you don't need to do therapy to move energy. You can do all kinds of energy work, meditating, journaling, tapping, EAM. I've got my own method that I do as well. Like there's a load of different methods of releasing stuff out of your energy field where you can just release out those old vibrations. So part of the coming back to what we were talking about, when you're then like having an expectation of something just going well, that is the energy that is out in your field. So you're now getting off that plane and you're walking to the real estate on the high street or wherever you went to get this flat or this friend or whatever. And before your body gets there, your energy field gets there because it's going ahead of you, right? It's all the way around you. So before you even get there, there's this expectation of, well, this woman needs a flat. Let's help this woman get a flat, you know? So, and obviously that's going to depend on who you're interacting with and what their field is. But, you know, your field is going through their field as you're approaching them. And it gets very complicated very quickly if you think about this frequency our bodies are giving off. But that's all this is. So, and when I'm talking about business, if I'm walking around, let's go back to the Instagram example. If I'm about to post on Instagram and I've got the expectation and the past experience and my friend's past experience who came around and told me all about it last night, and my mum's who's also tried Instagram, and the neighbours who hates Instagram, and like if I'm carrying everybody's energy about how awful Instagram is, and then I go try and post and gain followers, what's the energy that is going through form into my device, computer, phone, whatever, to post that post? Because that typing that you're doing is just energy of moving fingers, and it goes into your device, which is just energy, which then it's all just energy. That's what everything in the universe boils down to.
No, I love that, absolutely. And it's interesting you talk about you know, how therapy can get rid of this stuff. So as you know, I'm a therapist and I do a lot of
really
how convenient. I do a lot of neurolinguistic programming because it kind of
that's another one.
NLP does a lot of that, and you don't know that's what it's doing, but particularly with when you're working the brain loves metaphors. So I will take people through exercises and they'll see these colors, and it all comes from them. I'm just going, do you see anything? Oh, I see like pink with purple spots. Perfect. That's what you want to see. But again, it is all energy. It's all just interpreting what it's the brain giving form to something that we can't necessarily quantify, and particularly with negative emotions. I often get a lot of reds or dark greens or blacks and greys that people see, and you clear it out. And, one session can be enough to clear that out, just to get your energy, as you would talk about it, into a good state again, to get
It's
the
just a
mindset
different
right.
form of energy. Colour is just
Absolutely.
a different type of energy signal, right?
Yeah.
And the thing that I think most people miss is that the more tools you have in your toolbox, the easier the stuff gets. If you know how to journal, right? That's gonna, and your kids have just gone off to school and they've had a massive argument in the car as you dropped them off, and so forgot their lunch, and oh my god, okay, I need to go home, get their lunch. Like, I mean, it's just real life, right? So this stuff happens.
Adulting.
Yeah, adulting. And you get back to the house and you're like, ah. So in that moment, you can either get on your laptop and do your work, or get on the bus and go to work, whatever you're going to do, right? You can, let's say, get on your laptop and do your work, and all of that frustration and annoyance is in you and around you, and you're now carrying that into that email you're trying to craft to this new customer that you're hoping to win, or whatever. Or you can sit for a second and you could send a voice note to a friend and just dump it all out and go, I'm just so cross, I just want to dump all of this out, and I just want to talk into this voice note until I feel better. And then I don't need to do anything other than heart this message when I'm done. And then you can delete it so that it's not on your energy either. Or sit and meditate or journal or like whatever. If you have a therapist and you know a bit of NLP and you know how to do tapping and you have some favorite meditations, you can just pick whatever is the quick change your vibration in that moment, and that can then run through everything. And it's not a substitute for trying to grow on Instagram without having done any learning about the algorithms or having never used it, so you don't know what kind of posts people like seeing, or you haven't researched the people in your field and like checked which ones are growing and which ones aren't. And I mean, that's just one example of business stuff, right? But it's not a substitute. There is the technical strategy stuff that there is to know about how to run a business. And I've had many different businesses. I've sold 6. The last couple have gone to multi-millions in the first couple of years. I've had one in the multiple tens of millions. I've had one that had over 1 million social media followers, like all some big ones, right? But I've also had the ones that I started that I managed to finally make $20 and then never made anything else. I went down in a flaming pile of poo. You have to learn and take the time to do your learning. It's like if you were trying to be a therapist without any qualifications. I mean, that's dangerous. It's a whole different thing.
Irresponsible and the whole problem. But you know what? It happens, and it happens in all areas, like you say.
Yeah.
And I think I love what you're saying, because often, manifestation is something that comes into the woo space a lot. And of course, you can sit there and go, I want to make £1 million. But if you don't move, if you don't apply that thought, you're not going to make £1 million just by sitting there wishing it. Like, you have to take action on everything you do. But I guess combining your approach and understanding the energy, the flow of everything, when you're taking action, your intention is there and the right thought process is behind it, as opposed to Instagram is annoying, or I only use it for cute animal pictures and film previews, which is what I use it a lot for. There's a lot of animals. Capybara is
funny
my
cat
favorite
videos. Yeah, I got
it. We all have our little vices.
Me, it's dolls' houses. I'm fascinated with watching how people put together these tiny little things. And then the thing is, there's now stuff, this is totally separate, stuff will come up in my feed, and it takes me a second to work out whether it's real or whether it's a doll's house, because I've been watching so many of these things. And I'll be watching this lovely little scene, and then a massive hand will come in from the top, and you're like, oh, oh, it was a doll's house.
Good. Now I know.
Whatever you like to watch on Instagram.
Absolutely. But ultimately, you have to take the action, and you have to take educated action. Like, blind. You can get blind luck, can't you? You can do something because you're new, and it kind of works for a little bit. But it gets that point where you have to be more strategic or be more thought out of what you're trying to do. And no amount of wishing, hoping, or even manifesting energy or the right flow will actually get you to the end results.
Well, that's very true. For me, it's a not hustle, a no hustle culture thing. So I do not subscribe to hustle culture. I know many people who do. I have a mentor who does, and I learn a lot from talking to these people and listening to them. And it's just a different way of doing it, right? But it's not how I personally like to do it. And for me, if I'm learning all of the strategy stuff, the Etsy, the Instagram, the TikTok, the WooCommerce, all of the tech stuff of the website, the automating things so that you don't have to work so flipping hard, like all of that technical how to run a business, and then I'm putting the energy flow through it, suddenly I don't have to work so hard to get the same result. Or I can work even less and I can get an even better result because I'm in flow and everything is working with me. There's always going to be problems. There's always going to be stuff that happens. But when you approach it from, it's part of my growth because I'm only in a flow state. Therefore, if something comes in, it's there for a reason. If something comes in that's really difficult, that's blocked me, there's a purpose behind that. And that's for me to stop and go, what is the purpose of this? Why is this blocker in my face? And usually, in 5 years' time, you can look back and go, oh, I see. Yeah, I see now why that relationship with that guy never worked out. Because at the time, you thought it should.
Pain is temporary. It's like, I like to tell people, pain is temporary. It doesn't feel like it when you're living it, but pain is temporary. No, absolutely. You made another really good point there. In terms of bringing it all together. Now I know you have your academy. How did that come about? What's your intention with that?
So there's two sides to what I do. Thank you for asking. There is the strategy tactical side. So I've talked a lot about Instagram, but it's really just one social media platform. But it is looking at your funnel of all of the different ways that people can hear about you. So you've got Instagram, TikTok, all of the socials, and you've then, LinkedIn, and then you've got paid advertising, you've got physical in-person advertising, you've got referral programs, podcasts, books, whatever the ways are people hear about you. And then how do these people then filter through to your different products? And where in that product ecosystem do you have recurring income? Where is what are the different types of customers you're attracting? Where is the value for them that's going to keep having them flow through to the next thing? What are the automations so that you're not having to work so hard? Like that whole, I need a word for it, like business structure.
Ecosystem?
Yeah. Thing.
Something.
This side of the screen.
Yep.
So and then I've got the energy side, which is you're working out what is already in your energy field and how do you release that and allow in the flow that you want to have in all of the areas you want to have it. And so when I was then like, well, how do I teach this? Because I've had loads of different businesses, and what's super exciting to me now is, so I sold my last business, and then what was I going to do next? And then I had about 8 friends go, well, you could help me with my business. I've been waiting until you're in between one. Anyway, so I started helping a few people, and then the next thing, it's like, well, this is actually really fun. I really enjoy this. So then what I'm creating is a whole academy type thing of how you do this. How do you structure and run a business? And how do you do it with ease and flow and without being in that hustle culture? So what I've started with is this first side, which I know you know about. So it's something called the Money Zone Club, and I can give you links for it. And we've got a free trial, and it is where I teach my method of checking what is in your energy, because you can use, if you've heard of dowsing, I don't know why I can't say that word properly, pendulum, muscle testing, there's different ways you can ask your body in your energy field, what is the frequency coming off my body, and then releasing whatever the frequencies are that you don't need. So it is a science-based, it's not a therapy, and it's no substitute for therapy. They need to work with you for that. But I mean, you can release anything, but it's not going to help you process stuff in your brain. You're literally just moving energy out of your field, which will make you feel better. But whatever's going on underneath this, if there's something deep, there's still something to work through, right? So yeah, so I've started with that side of it, which is where I teach that, and we'll pop a link in for that so you can have a little check out. And then what will be coming is the other side of it.
And what is the other side then? There's all the strategy, but have you, when you approach that kind of, again, it's the duality, isn't it? It's the flow in the business. Where for you, have you found a sweet spot where you know that you're totally in flow, business is running? Again, is that an incremental process? Is it you start off a bit, test and adjust, moving forward, moving back, and then suddenly you kind of build it to that crescendo where you've kind of arrived? Or do you think it's an ongoing test and adjust process?
I think it's ongoing. I don't know any business owner. I'm sure there are some, but I don't personally know anyone who's like, oh, woohoo, I've arrived, I'm done. If you feel like that, it's probably time to sell, or it's probably time to systemize and get your team fully running it and have somebody else take over the helm. Like all of the, I mean, this is not going to be true for everyone, but all of the people I know, there's usually a drive behind the owner of the business where they want to do it better, and then they reach, their first goal is just making any sale, and then after they've made their first sale, it's like, well, if I could make $100 a week, or dollars, pounds, whatever, and then if I could make 500, that would like cover our food bill. If I could make $1,000, that would like help towards the mortgage. and then the money just gets bigger and bigger. And then the next thing you're going, God, well, if I could get to like 20 grand a month, I might be able to eventually buy my parents a house. And your personal goals are often so intertwined with your business ones that there's always this more. I can't remember what the question was you asked.
I think you answered it. Was that the ongoing test and adjust of how you grow these things in parallel, really.
So I was listening to a woman called Maria Wendt, Wendt, who's brilliant on Instagram. Love how she does things, and we do a lot of the similar stuff. And I really like how she does it. Anyway, so I was listening to something that she said in one of her videos, which was, I think she said it was her 4th different iteration of her business that finally started picking up speed. And I was like, wow, yeah, there's something about the 3 or 4 number that,
sorry,
bless you. There's something about that 3 or 4 number where you try something and you think you know what customers want because it's what you would want to buy if you were the customer, right? And then you get it out there, and then you have a couple of real clients try it, or friends, or whoever, or people buy it, and then they're like, this, and so the next, or it doesn't quite sell, and then you're like, oh, maybe if I changed it to this, and so then now you've got iteration number 2, second course, second membership, a second product, service, whatever, and then the next thing you get a bit more feedback, and you're like, oh, I could make it so much better if we did this, and then you go, well, that's really interesting because I thought customers I think they need this, but actually they're telling me they want that. How do I deliver what they need, but package it as what they want? And I think there's an iteration process for anyone who's really passionate about providing value and service. And a lot of people might say on social media that that's not what running a business is. It's not about serving others. If you wanted to do that, you should join the police or become a nurse or, But to me, that is what business is. And if you were to strip away everybody's perceptions and what they think it should be and any weirdness they've got about money, which is one of the reasons I started with money on the energy side of things, is because people are weird about money. And if you can let go a lot of that weirdness, suddenly it makes running a business so much easier. Because if, as the business owner, you're struggling to pay your rent, or you're worried about your house being repossessed, or you can't feed your family, how are you possibly going to be providing a really great level of service? You need your business to be profitable and not just scrape by. You need it to be more than comfortable, like really achieving all of your goals. Because if you think, imagine your biggest dreams and goals and what that would take financially. Just imagine it for a second. Okay, they're going to be different for everyone. But and some of you might be thinking, God, mine are quite selfish. It's a Gucci handbag and a nice pair of Prada shoes. Like, fine. It's there's no judgment, right? Somebody wants to bring fresh water to parts of the planet that don't have it, and someone else wants a Ferrari. They're different goals. But imagine if you had all of that, what would you do then? And what could your business do for the planet if it was making enough money to provide you with all of that as well? That then is a powerful business, right? That can really change stuff. And you, as the person walking around in your, I forgot what brand I just said, Prada, Gucci, whatever shoes, if you're walking around with your nice handbag and your nice shoes, feeling fantastic about yourself, do you think you're going to feel more creative?
Oh, yeah.
Yeah. Like, do you think you're going to then, do you think you're going to turn into some materialistic person that you don't ever imagine yourself would ever be? Or do you think it would make you more of who you are because you have more space, more freedom?
And I think these are really interesting questions because I've always heard it said that money doesn't make you better or worse, but it does expose who you really are.
Yeah.
But I also think that, you know, the way you phrased it, it does absolutely amplify you. But I also think because a lot of people don't get to the point where they are truly free to make those choices. And so you have the behaviors of, again, insecurity. You know, I have to look a certain way, I have to be a certain way. But like you say, imagine if you get to that point where actually money is no longer an issue. Like, what do you do then? Because I think even people who may come across in that sort of transition period of, you know, they have all the Gucci cars and not the Gucci makes cars.
I know what you mean.
What I mean?
It's just like label.
That's what they say. Have all the posh cars. And they've probably, I wonder if you get to a point where you go, this isn't what I want. And that's when you start to look at how you can give back more. But I think there is a maturity around the growth with money that some people need to really go through more than others. I mean, I think some people have it. And someone said to me, you know, you make more so you can give more. And that's very much what I subscribe to. However, I need to be comfortable so I can give more. Because if I'm not my best, if I'm not fully creative, if I'm not, you know, able to not react from a place of fear, then I'm not giving my best. I'm clearly not focusing on the right things. And so is that journey you have to go through.
That's very true. There's also the who are you uplifting, right? So there are people who have these enormous noble goals of wanting to bring peace on earth. Okay, let's use that as an example. That's great, right? But that can also feel completely overwhelming when you think of all of the wars and the inequality and the prejudices and all of the horrific things that go on around the planet. So that's a really overwhelming goal, while it's a noble one, and there will be people who deliver on some of that, and that's amazing, and I fully support them. And then in contrast, what if there was an army of people who were trying to uplift their children, their parents, their neighbour? There's an older couple that live not too far from here, and I keep thinking, God, if I had more time, I should totally take them around some cookies. Like, just wouldn't that be nice? Just to go, like, I see them watching my children playing, you know, and they're like, every time I see them out, they're like, oh, it's so nice seeing young people. And I'm just like, I should try bring my young people around for you to, like, because you don't get very many, I see you don't get very many visitors. And it's like, and that's just one thing. But our attention and our time, because if you're struggling for money, and this is just one example, right? I get there are many struggles people go through, right? And I'm not putting any one thing over another. We're just taking an example here. But if you take the example of money, if you are struggling for money and you can see your best friend is struggling with their health, if you are your brain is fully over here in the money, your brain is not also over here thinking how you could help.
Yeah.
If you imagine that being taken away, you now have loads of money. What could you get them private surgery if that's what they needed? Like, what could you do? Could you make a difference with the NHS somehow? Or, it doesn't matter what it is, but everybody has a person they wished they could pay off their mortgage, or a person they wished they could give them private surgery or private something, or a person they wished they could just help in some way. Go and sit and have a cup of tea and not be so rushed. And that's the reason I started with money as a topic, because if we can get rid of all of our weirdness around it and actually enjoy having it and enjoy using it, more then comes to you. And then you have the freedom and the space to do some of this stuff. And you can take the same theory and apply it to health, to peace, to your weight, to your possessions, to anything. You can literally apply that, how you shift your energy, to anything at all. I just started with money because it can make a difference when it's used in imagine more money in good-hearted people's hands. How would the planet change? If you took all of the wealth that's in weird remote places that nobody's using. I know people are. Don't come for me about that. I get they are. But just imagine somehow we did, and put it in the hands of good-hearted people who would do good stuff with it. Like I can think of 3 people whose mortgages I would pay off, just off the top of my head.
I've got that list. Absolutely. Yeah.
I'm never going to tell them. I'll just keep that quiet, and then one day maybe I could.
That's also part of the fun, though. It's like one day you just rock up and you're like, "Here's your house," and
Wouldn't
then
that
you
be fun?
That's it. And I love that, and I also think you're right though, because money isn't the problem. Like, money has flow. But money doesn't have emotions.
Money
it's
is
not like
just
money
an
goes
energy.
to you. Yeah, it is just energy. It's just a tool. But there's no denying, as you say, a lack of money causes problems for different reasons.
Yep.
And you overcome the fear of having money and the fear of not being a good person if you have money, because it's acidic. It amplifies who you are, and there's so much to fix there. And I work, I do some money emotional intelligence work as well. And what's interesting to me is it's not just about the flow for people, but there's generational behaviors in there, and particularly right now, people of our age have had grandparents who grew up in wars. And so that is passed on, that scarcity, that fear, and again, it's for me, it's an emotional trauma, but in your terms, it's just energy, and it's the wrong energy being passed on. It's being aware, and that's why I think what you're doing with your children again is trying to find that balance. Like I said, all good parents trying to do that balance between go and grow,
not screaming
but also
at
please
them,
don't kill yourself,
making sure they're fed.
Yeah,
keep
exactly.
them alive.
It's never going to change. But I think teaching different lessons about money to children can help break generational poverty to an extent. Can help because it changes the mindset. It changes the reality of this is all I'm going to be to there's so much I could be.
Yeah.
I just need to go for it. And I worked for a year as a teacher. I loved the kids, did not like homework. There we go. But I worked in Newcastle, and it was quite a poor area. It was a brilliant school, lovely. I said I love the kids, all personalities, but a lot of them going to the centre of Newcastle was as far as they'd been in their lives, and that's all they could imagine. And for me, the earlier you teach children that you're not limited by where you are, by who your family is, by what even society tells you, that's when you really start to see maybe, peace in the world, because we stop worrying about the little things and start thinking in bigger terms. But it's not easy, and it needs everyone to do it.
Yeah, and imagine this is really getting into the theoretical, but imagine if there is a child right now somewhere on this planet. So imagine all the people in your head, draw the planet, and imagine all the people dotted all over it. Imagine if somewhere on the planet there is someone who knows or who will work out how to bring about world peace, who could stop war because they've got a way of phrasing things and communicating and a charisma that just people get and they're drawn to, and they're like, yeah, let's do that. Imagine if there's someone on the planet who's going to be able to cure Parkinson's or MS or cancer or insert any terrible thing that ravages people who don't deserve to be. Like, there are kids on the planet now who will grow up into those roles and make that difference. And the thing about it, which is where the energy really comes into it, is that child or those children were in the stomachs of mothers before they were born, right? Most of them. I'm sure there's the occasional baby that was growing up in a sack somewhere, but in a body of a person. Okay, let's put it that way. They are physically inside someone else's energy field. So that energy field of that parent will have impacted that child. And so not only are they coming out into a world with all of the stereotypes and all of the mindset stuff that is immediately put upon children and all of the wars and the things happening around them, they've physically been in someone else's energy field for 9 months. And then they come out and the parents are holding them, hopefully loving them and caring for them and all of that stuff. But they're now still in somebody else's energy field because they're still, in someone's arms. It's completely surrounded by their energy field. And then that parent who's currently doing that was in somebody else's stomach because we all came from somebody, right? So it goes, the generational trauma thing is not just how your parents talked to you or what they said or the things that went on around you and all of that. We are all linked to what has happened in the past with humanity. And the work of getting the physics of how that impacts your body and your energy, and then what you're able to then do and the content and happiness at which you're able to do it, and being able to shift that can genuinely change the planet. And then you add in the letting go of the stereotypes, like the stuff around money, and suddenly you've got this generation of kids who could flipping do anything and could make any change they want to make on the planet. And then imagine that. I just find it really moving and powerful, and
gives you
and
hope.
Every one of those kids is living next door to a neighbour, has got a postman who's going to interact with them, has got teachers that are going to interact with them, has got kids they're going to interact with. We're all interlinked, all of us.
Love that. And I think that 7 steps removed thing, it's when you start doing it, it's bloody scary, isn't it? Like, you're like, oh, actually, I don't know, the king, because I know somebody who did this, did that, and I know Bob over there. And actually, it's not even 7 steps half the time anymore. It seems to be less and less, despite more people in the world. It seems to be easier to find ways of connecting. Have you ever gone to a
seminar or something, which I know we have we've gone to some together, but have you ever gone to a seminar or something and sat next to someone and you could look polar opposites to each other? One could be tall, one could be short, one could be fat, one could be thin, one could be this colour, one could be that colour, one could be that gender, one could be that gender. One could have this kind of background, that kind of background, different political beliefs, different religions, different everything. And if you just stop for a second and talk to each other, you will find a commonality there. There is always one, because 100%. We are all linked, all of us. Yeah. Anyway, there was a very long answer to why money.
Yeah, no, I love it.
Because it makes a flipping difference when it's used well.
And I guess, so why money? And also now the business as well. But what do you have that big vision for the future? What is your current view of where you want to take things?
I believe anyone who wants to could and should be able to have a business if they want one. And there is so much talent out there where people don't know how to run a business and they don't know how their energy is impacting it and making it difficult for themselves. And I don't have a kind of a nice, neat elevator pitch. What's my vision for the world? And I would love to develop that. I'm sure I'll probably need to go on a course to do that and learn how to do it. But when I have, I shall let you know what it is. But it's definitely something around, I want the people who have stuff to give and share and teach to be able to go do that. And I want to be really well rewarded for helping them do that so that I can help more. And I want them to be really well rewarded for doing that so they can do more of that. And it's shifting the energy of money into this force for good, that the more of it people have, the more good they can do, and that there's a momentum of goodness behind it, not this vomity yuck feeling that a lot of society and historical things have been. You know, I mean, you don't have to dig very far to find terrible things that have been done with money, but it is just a tool and it can be used in any which way.
I love that. Thank you. Thank you so much. It's been amazing.
Oh, you're welcome. Thank you. That was a fun conversation.
So I love doing this. So we've got your money zone. We're going to have the link to that.
Yep.
Are you on social media and happy for people to come and find you?
Yes, I am. And yes, I would love to come and
Brilliant.
Tag me, send a message, tell me how you found it. I would love to know that. I'll share all my links so you can pop them in the show notes.
Perfect.
Thank you.
No, thank you ever so much. It's been wonderful having you.